So we're going to just let everyone get into the room here, and then we'll get going. Just give another few minutes here. See some people joining. It's just the week of Realtor Quest here in Ontario for the Prop Techs and Trev members. So we were out there getting ready for Realtor Quest this week. And we'll have about 10,000 agents through that auditorium in the next 2 days. So it's going to be a busy day.
Where is that?
That's at the Toronto Congress Center. And we've got a booth this year for our company. All right,
Sounds
so we're just
interesting.
yeah, no, have you ever been to one of those big conferences that put on by the boards?
Um, Not for a long time.
Yeah.
Did the ones that were put on by the franchise, but
No, this one's
never did.
one of the largest ones in North America.
Wow.
Okay, so we've got a bunch of people come on into the Zoom meeting, and then we're live streaming on social media. Welcome, everybody. My name is Aaron Richardson. I'm the general manager and partner with Century 21 Heritage Group here in Ontario. And I am passionate about learning systems, and I've been working with Excel for the last 3 years. And now, with Excel built out and so robust with its learning content, we're having these seminars to really talk about the tools and the stuff within the industry, specifically real estate, that we can utilize every day. And today, have a special guest, Don. Hey, Don, how are you?
Good.
And
How are you, Aaron?
and Gortz, is that right in
Gert,
terms of
Gertz.
pronunciation? Gertz?
Gertz.
Okay, Don Gertz. Okay. Well, you're a seasoned real estate professional with 40 years of industry experience, known for deep market knowledge, steady leadership. Don has helped guide countless clients and agents through the complexities of buying and selling homes. In addition to his real estate expertise, Don is a certified DISC behavioral consultant, using his understanding of personality styles to coach, mentor, and communicate more effectively with both clients and colleagues. With a calm, measured approach and a passion for people, Don remains a trusted voice in the real estate community. So I had AI do some research on you, and I know you're passionate about real estate and learning systems. I understand, and one of the things that I have been using for many years is the DISC system. So this one is really a very interesting topic for me. I love using it in my day to day, whether it be negotiations or dealing with my wife or kids or family. Like, I mean, you can use it in anything, which is really, really special about DISC profiling. But Don, you have a really great presentation that you're going to give us today to go over what DISC is. So why don't start up the screen and take us through, and then what we'll do is at the end, if we have any questions, I'll be able to sort of go through those as well as just kind of tighten things up and tell you guys where to get more resources for this topic. Go ahead there, Don.
Good. Okay. Well, thank you, Aaron. Let's see if my screen. Everybody see my screen? Is it going okay?
There we go. You're up.
Okay. So, welcome to the webinar today, Mastering Real Estate Negotiations by Leveraging DISC Theory. You know, when you registered for the webinar, you were able to ask questions, and one of them was, "What is DISC theory anyway?" You know, so the short answer is that DISC is a behavioral assessment tool that's based on the work of William Marston. An interesting thing about William Marston is he was also the inventor of Wonder Woman. So and the lie detector. So but DISC identifies four primary personality styles. You know, and our intent today is to give you some insight onto how you can use this tool and develop better communication skills to help you become successful in your negotiations, that in the negotiations that you encounter in your career and in your life. So well-known real estate guru Brian Buffini says that every successful realtor has to have what he refers to as HAS. HAS is an acronym for attributes that you must have to develop a successful career. You know, and it means that you're going to have excellent work habits, you're going to maintain a positive attitude, and you're going to develop your skills. He also says that your activities need to include daily calls, notes, and pop-bys. So let me ask you a question. What do you think is the number one skill or activity that a realtor has that will result in a paycheck? I don't know if they can answer that by adding it to the chat, but just maybe put in the chat what you think is that number one skill or activity. Brian says the number one activity or skill required that results in a paycheck is our activity of negotiating. So negotiating is both an activity and a skill. And some might argue that there are other things, but I think when it comes right down to it, if you're not able to negotiate well, you will not have as many paychecks as you might like to see. In fact, Brian says that our purpose as a realtor is in negotiating is to make deals. And when you make deals, what happens? You get paid. We're all negotiators in one sense or another, and we learn it at an early age. As parents, we're negotiating with our kids, and as spouses, we negotiate all the time with our partner. And for you guys out there, it's important to remember, though, that happy wife, happy life. The point of the matter is that negotiating is part of life. It's also a subset of what the number one skill that many of our other needed skills rely on. That's communication. So it makes sense for us to work on improving this skill, doesn't it? How many are interested in learning something that will help you have more paychecks? I'm sure that everyone's going to answer yes to that one. Otherwise, you wouldn't be on this webinar. So a little bit about me, like Aaron said, I've been in the real estate business a long time. I started in 1984, and I've enjoyed many roles. I started as a salesperson, then as a manager, then the managing broker and training facilitator. And I've seen lots of changes in our industry, and I've seen many realtors come and go. And in some cases, I think that was unnecessarily so. So I like to do things like this to help people learn to do better and to improve the different skills that they have. So I know the challenges. I've also am still licensed as a realtor and still active as a realtor. So I know the challenges that you have. But disc theory is a simple system. Disc theory is a simple system for understanding our personality and behavioral tendencies. And when we have a good understanding of those tendencies and recognize them in the people that we're dealing with, we will improve our communication skills. And with better communication skills, you're going to make more sales. The first place to start is to better understand our own communication style. So how do you communicate? And then once we recognize our communication style, we'll be able to recognize the communication style in others. So we can better adjust our presentations to match what our prospect is looking for. By doing so, we're going to improve our negotiating. We're going to improve our negotiating skills. So to do this, we're going to first take a look at disc theory and what it is. So early in my career, I had a listing that sat on the market for about 6 months with no offers. A tough situation that that I'm sure that maybe you can relate to that or not, depending on when you started in the business. I'm sure Aaron can, because he's been around for a while, but it's not one that you want to have. You want your listings to sell in a timely manner. And my seller was a builder and an investor. He was getting anxious. So during an open house, I met a couple who seemed interested. A few days later, they called and they had an offer that they wanted to make that was 30% below asking price. Ouch. So now as negotiators, how do you deal with a lowball offer? We always have three options. We either can accept, we can counter, or we can reject. In this circumstance, we chose to counter the offer. Negotiations that are typically position-based or interest-based. And at this point in the negotiation, it was clearly that we were in a positional-based, we were dealing with a positional-based buyer. He was a pretty sharp Scotsman, elderly Scotsman, who was determined to get the lowest price. And while my client was an experienced businessman, he also wanted top dollar. So we went back and forth a few times until we hit my seller's bottom line, and it looked like we'd reached a stalemate. By then, the buyer's wife stepped in. She shifted the conversation from price alone to her real interest, and that was of finding a home, a place where she could settle in. So suddenly we moved from a positional to an interest-based negotiation. And that's what ultimately got the deal done. Position-based negotiation can be adversarial. It is often a win-lose proposition, whereas interest-based negotiation looks for the win-win and is cooperative. A realtor version of let's make a deal, maybe. Often negotiations for a home may start off as a position-based, I want X and they will pay Y, and you might end up in a stalemate. But I'm betting For all the deals that you have made, you could name what the buyer or seller's special interest was that clinched it. I've often heard that buyers want to make logical decisions, but the reality is that we make emotional decisions and then we try to justify it with our logic. So when you have some insight into the emotional triggers of your clients, you're going to have a better idea of what moves them and how to help them achieve their actual goals. So understanding DISC style is going to help us relate to those interests or identify those emotional triggers. In any given transaction, you're dealing with multiple personalities. And the first person you need to deal with is yourself. Do you know your communication style, and do you know what your blind spots are? We all have them. Do you enjoy the relationship, or are you looking to win the competition? Can you empathize with their circumstances, or are you needing to find out what all the facts are? How about your client? What is their personality, and how about their spouse? Have you ever noticed how partners can sometimes be complete opposites? What about the other realtor? What's their style, and how about their clients? Each one of us is different and we communicate different. Some of us need a ton of info. Others like to talk a lot, and some are impatient, want you to cut just to the chase. While others just want everyone to get along, knowing that a different approach is required for each is a big step towards closing more deals. Having some practical insights into observable behaviors and communication styles helps you adjust your communication style in all settings. We'll also be able to identify what their greatest fear might be. Now, it's highly unlikely that your clients or other parties in a transaction are going to complete a DISC assessment prior to your meeting with them. So you may want to consider what we can observe visually and what we do and hear them saying. So we observe and we listen. So on the DISC matrix, first you want to consider where you want to place someone on the DISC matrix. The horizontal axis will help you determine if they are outgoing or reserved, or another way to put it is, are they active or passive? As you're talking with them, do they appear to be ready for action? Are they outgoing and anxious to take the next step? Or are they tentative, and do they appear more cautious, wanting reassurance and verification of what you are saying? If they're outgoing, then they will be above the line. If they appear to be more reserved, then we would place them below the line. D's and I's are the active and outgoing styles, and S's and C's are the passive or reserved styles. The next part of the observation process will be based on the vertical axis. Are they primarily concerned with tasks or activities, or do they need to place, or are they concerned about the people and the relationships? Are they concerned about how it's going to make them feel? If a person seems more concerned about what it will take to get the job done, then they would be considered task-oriented. If they're people-oriented ones are more concerned about others, they're going to deal with the circumstances, more concerned about how they're going to deal with the circumstances or the decision. Then they give you clues that they're going to be the people-oriented ones. So the I's and the S's are the people-oriented individuals in the room, and the task-focused ones would be the D's or the I's. The truth is that each of us have all four of these attributes in our personality profile to one degree or another. And how those attributes manifest themselves is often determined by our environment and the experiences of life that we've had. So a key to understanding the different profiles is to consider your context. So the D style is known for their dominance. They are an individual who is active and task-oriented and have characteristics like being decisive, they're direct, and they're results-oriented. In a real estate deal, you may find that they're looking to make a quick deal and are focused on the return on investment. They may be impatient with the details and looking to see how they might come out the winner. Their greatest fear is that somebody's going to take advantage of them. The I style, or the influencer, is also an active individual, but they're more concerned about the relationship and the people. You might describe them as the consummate extrovert because they often will seem like the life of the party. They are enthusiastic, optimistic, and relationship focused. They want to enjoy the process, and in real estate will value rapport and seeing different possibilities. They're very interested in the social aspect of buying and selling. And probably many of you in the room can relate to that because salespeople tend to be I-style individuals. Being the social animal that they are, the I-style personality really wants you to like them. So their greatest fear is that you won't. The S-styles are the steady eddies. They're calm, they're patient, they're cooperative. And in a real estate deal, they seek reassurance that their key values and trust is going to be looked after. They do not like confrontation. They don't like change, and they're looking for a smooth, stress-free process. You know, the S's are the steady ones, and as such need time to process the change. So if you're pushy or want something to happen quickly, you might find that they're going to become resistant to that change. The C styles are known as conscientious ones. They are analytical, they're detail-oriented, and they're cautious. You know, and they're on the reserve side of the matrix, but they're also very conscious of the process and what will need to happen for the sale to complete. You'll know that when you're working with a C-style individual, all the details on your contract will usually be right and they'll be correct. And your broker will really like that. You know, in a real estate transaction, they will need solid data and facts. You may find that they ask a lot of questions and want to understand every aspect of the transaction. You know, the C-style, though, their greatest fear is being wrong. They want to make sure that they have everything correct. And they're sometimes perfectionists. And if they think that you're not following the rules, they might start to dig their heels in. So the question is, where do you see yourself? Where do you see yourself when you consider these styles? Usually we find that you're typically dominant in one or two styles and occasionally three. You know, but put in the comments what style you think you are. I know some of you are wondering, how can I tell what style I am? But you may have found enough information to already be able to place yourself on that matrix. The typical sales profile, sometimes I get asked, you know, what's the typical salesman profile, is dominant in either the D or the I, with the other being secondary. So DI or ID is the typical salesman profile. But I do want to go on record as saying that doesn't guarantee a person's success in real estate, nor does it say that you can't succeed with any of the other combination. An example of that would be me. I'm a high CS, which is the actual opposite of the probably the opposite of what the ideal profile is. But I've been in the business for 40 years, so I've been able to find my way. You know, so we're not here to put labels on anybody either. You know, there's more to it than that, like utilizing our unique strengths. But discussing those ideas is going to take up more time than we actually have today. You know, but negotiation, where negotiation meets DISC is if you studied negotiating, you may have run across the idea of the 5 negotiation techniques like those from the Harvard's program on negotiation. They are competing, they're collaborating, compromising, avoiding, and accommodating. You know, and when we take just what we learned about DISC and compare this to these strategies, we can map out similarities that would give us clues in our negotiations with others. So let's look at the competitive style. They emphasize winning through assertiveness. The chances are you're going to be negotiating with a D-style individual. You know, the D-style negotiators, they are direct, they're results oriented, and they thrive on challenges. They often view negotiation as an opportunity to achieve their goals efficiently. You know, when working with a D-style, it can be effective to let them feel like they've gained something from the process. Let them win a little bit. You know, pace is also important for them. They prefer negotiations to move quickly. So focus on the main issues. They also focus on the main issues, and it's important for you to respond promptly to them. You know, this approach is going to align well with the competing negotiation technique. D-styles respect boldness and confidence, so standing your ground can be an effective approach. You know, they tend to respond well to assertive offers that match their energy and decisiveness, which highlights the importance of speed and confidence when dealing with this personality. So to negotiate successfully with a D-style, present your request clearly, be prepared to address objections confidently, and avoid being bogged down in details. D-styles are frequently found in leadership roles and like to get things done. You know, I asked my AI program who would exemplify the attributes of a D-style personality, and I bet you can all guess that they came up with Mr. Donald Trump. But the next if the person you're negotiating with is more collaborative, are they trying to find the win for everybody? You could be dealing with the I style negotiator. They are known to be enthusiastic, they're optimistic, and they're people oriented. They excel in social situations and value relationships highly. And when negotiating with an I style, it's essential to create a positive collaborative atmosphere that aligns perfectly with the collaborating negotiation technique. This approach involves brainstorming a win-win ideas together, which appeals to the I style's love for teamwork and creativity. I styles thrive on positivity and I styles thrive on positivity and will engage fully when they feel they're part of a team effort. Interestingly, though, I styles often place significant value on personal connections and may be willing to trade tangible value for a sense of partnership. I think an example of that might be when you're doing a deal with somebody else, another realtor in the office, and you're friends with them. And if you ended up in a competing situation, they may more likely want to deal with you because they know you and they're friends with you than they might choose to deal with somebody else. So to negotiate successfully with an I style, focus on making them feel like co-creators in the process. Emphasize the mutual benefits of the agreement, and don't forget the power of a friendly handshake or gesture to seal the deal. This approach not only satisfies their need for social interaction, but it also leverages their natural inclination towards collaboration and win-win outcomes. Do you remember the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air on TV? Will Smith in that role was a good example of an I-style personality. Perhaps you found the other person on the other side was very accommodating. Accommodators like to keep the peace, and most likely are going to be the S-style negotiators. S's are steady, they're loyal, and relationship driven, prioritizing harmony and stability over confrontation. In real estate negotiations, they're more likely to accommodate others to maintain peace, making accommodating technique particularly effective. Yielding a little, such as saying, I'm happy to adjust this if it makes you more comfortable, resonates with their desire to avoid conflict and keep things calm. The S styles, they value reassurance and are more likely to agree to terms when they feel secure and supported. For example, an S style client might accept a less favorable deal simply to avoid tension or disagreement. To negotiate successfully with an S style in real estate, focus on creating a peaceful environment, offering reassurances about the process, and showing that you generally care about their comfort and satisfaction. This approach is going to build trust and encourages them to move forward confidently without feeling pressured. I think one thing to note is that the D style individual who wants things to happen quickly is going to have more of a challenge with the S style individual who likes to make sure that things go slowly because they don't like to have the change. So that's one of the ideas of this whole thing, is where you learn how to adapt your approach. So if you're a D style individual and you come up with are negotiating with an S style, you're going to want to make sure that you make that adjustment where you don't push too hard. Do you remember Mr. Rogers? He was always trying to be nice. So he would be an example of an S style individual. Maybe you've had a realtor provide you with a complete analysis of the market as their presentation of their client's offer on your listing. Maybe they've analyzed all the stats to show you how the market has changed. They likely prefer using the evidence-based approach to negotiating, and they could be a C style. They're analytical and they're data-driven, and they will prioritize facts over emotions. To effectively engage with them, present data-driven arguments, and because they're going to distrust their gut feelings, favoring the market trends and detailed analysis instead. And also, they're going to be paying attention to what the financial projections are. C styles are meticulous and generally rule followers. So be prepared with comprehensive data and present information logically, anticipate questions and supporting evidence, and allow time for processing. Pay close attention to the detail in all your documents. And for you Star Trek fans out there, think of Mr. Spock. Now, if we do have any C-style personalities in the room, you will have noticed that we highlighted 4 core negotiating strategies, but only have 4 personality styles. The leftover strategy is the avoiding strategy. And these are individuals who like to steer clear of any conflict or negotiation altogether. And I think there are two DISC profiles that would fit that category, the S's and the C's. You know, when it comes to negotiating with with someone who seems to be avoiding you, it's beneficial to ask more probing questions to find out what their underlying fear is. You know, are they an S type? Are they an S type who is not dealing with the change well? They don't want to have experience the change. They don't want to experience the pain of the change. Or maybe they're a C style rule follower and they don't have a good feeling that everything is being done according to the correct protocols. You know, further dialogue is going to help you uncover that real challenge. So let's try putting this all together. Negotiating in real estate is a complex process that involves multiple parties, each with their own unique personality and approach. By understanding DISC personality styles, adapting communication styles, aligning them with negotiation techniques, you can significantly enhance your effectiveness as a real estate professional. You need to become chameleon-like in your approach to your communication styles. To summarize, you know, consider the D style negotiator. They're direct, they're results oriented, they align well with the competing technique. You know, when dealing with the D style, be prepared to present your case assertively and focus on the bottom line. Remember, they respect boldness and quick decision making. A concise statement like this offer maximizes your return on investment, and here's why it can be highly effective. You know, for the I style, the collaborative approach works best. These individuals thrive on positive interactions and creative problem solving. Engage them in brainstorming sessions to find win-win solutions. And when dealing with the S-style negotiators, the accommodating technique is most effective. These individuals value harmony and stability, offer reassurances, and be willing to make small concessions to keep the process smooth. C-style negotiators respond best to the evidence-based pitch. They are analytical and detail-oriented, requiring comprehensive data and logical arguments. Present them with thorough market analysis, detailed financial projections, and well-researched comparables. It's crucial to note that while these techniques align well with specific DISC styles, flexibility is still key. People are complex, and you may encounter individuals who exhibit traits from multiple styles. Your ability to read that situation and adapt your approach accordingly will be of your greatest assets. In real estate negotiations, you're not just dealing with clients, but also with other realtors, with buyers and sellers. And each interaction presents an opportunity to apply your understanding of the different styles and negotiating techniques. So this knowledge, when you practice it, will allow you to anticipate the reactions and prepare an appropriate response. You know, you'll be able to frame your arguments in ways that resonate with each personality type. You'll be able to build rapport more quickly by speaking the language of each style. An example of that would be when we're talking about the D style individual. They like things quick. So make sure that you don't have to talk fast, but make sure you don't inundate them with all kinds of inane details. See, the C style, that's me. I would be the one that would give them all the details, and that probably doesn't work very well. So to close deals more effectively, you want to address each of the specific concerns of each style. So remember, the goal isn't to manipulate, but to communicate more effectively. You know, by understanding the motivations and preferences of different personality styles, you're going to create an environment where all parties can feel heard and valued. And this approach not only leads to more successful negotiations, but it also helps you build long-term relationships. So in conclusion, the intersection of DISC, personality styles, and negotiation techniques provides a powerful framework for success in real estate transactions. By honing your ability to recognize and adapt the different styles, you'll be better equipped to handle the diverse challenges that arise in real estate, ultimately leading to more closed deals and satisfied clients. And I think that's what we're all after. If you're interested in learning more about it, we have a couple different courses on the Excel program, but I'll let Aaron go with that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Don. That was a great overview. And like you had said, there's a couple courses I think in the Excel platform. If everyone if anyone has access to the Excel platform on our meeting, whether or not you're with the Century 21 office, for example, that has access to all the Excel courses, you can find the Maxwell Disc assessment that you can take, and that is specific. Is it right, Don? Like it's specific to sales, right? So it really
That's
can hone
specific to
in.
sales. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. And then the Chameleon's playbook. What's that gonna do in terms of, is that gonna get just more information about how to leverage the disk power?
The Chameleon playbook, we designed that to go through and try to look at different scenarios and have a deeper understanding of each style and their communication style. So it's and then how it would apply to sales specifically. So that's what it's designed to do.
And one of the things, I mean, you had mentioned for at the beginning of the seminar there was, and it was a question that somebody had asked that signed up for the program is, how can I, or what is the, I think the question was, what was the, what's the best profile to have to be a successful salesperson, right? And you had said, well, your typical was the D's and the I's because they're outgoing, they're direct, they're driven, and get the job done. But that's not always the case. Is that, I mean, Don, you had said that you're also a successful salesperson and you can leverage it in a different way. What would you say to some people that have the S and the C in order to be successful in real estate? What do they need to focus on?
I think I think every one of us has unique strengths, and to understand what those strengths are and how to use them properly, so that to our to your advantage. I think that's the biggest thing, and understanding that is DISC is one of the profile assessments that you can use. There's other ones out there that maybe some of us have heard, some of you have heard about. Um, I think I've tried every one of them,
Yeah,
but DISC is
me
one of
too.
the simplest,
It
and
is.
that's why we focus on the disc. But the profile that we have when you do the Maxwell sales profile assessment, it comes up and it gives you a list of I think 6 or 7 of your main strengths.
Yeah.
So, like I said, each we each have um, part of each profile in us. So we're all part DISC.
Mhm.
Just some of us have higher Ds, some of us have higher Cs. And the degree to which we have that helps them to determine, excuse me, what your strengths are.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think
Well,
you want to understand what your strengths are and play to your strengths.
I always use a specific, and I won't, bring her name into it, but we have a lady that's been a top salesperson, always a Centurion, top level award winner every year for the last, I think, 20 years. I mean, she's just great. But when she came into the industry, it was a little bit of afraid of her own shadow almost. She was not a D or an I, and she never has been, never perceives to be. But I got to tell you, the things that she did to get successful were all specifically, okay, if I'm going to have an open house and somebody says put out 10 signs, I'm going to put out 20. If somebody says I'm going to have a sign-in sheet, that's going to be done perfectly. And I'm going to follow up on every single client and follow up and follow up. And, and it's the tenacity of the C in her in order to do everything right. And she's so compliant and everybody just respects her, very loyal, all those great attributes of S's and C's. So yeah, you don't have to have the high I, high D to be a successful realtor for sure.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. I
And
100%, 100%.
what I will say, let's talk just quickly, and then we're going to wrap things up. But AI, how much is AI playing in? And I'll tell you a little story in a minute. But how much do you think AI is going to move forward to be a tool to help with these personality assessments?
I think that AI can be used for training. You can set up different conversations. You can have the AI set up a different conversation. You can set up have with programs like 11 Labs.
Mhm.
You can actually watch and you can come up with different ideas on how to have a conversation. Like we used to do role playing, and now you can do virtual role playing.
Yeah, I know
And
Excel is we're working on that right now. I know as a
yeah,
platform to help with the training as well. One
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
exercises we did this year with our management team and our agents is we had everybody do a DISC assessment, and then we plugged in so everybody did a DISC assessment. We put all the assessments into AI, and it remembered every single person's name and their assessment. So we could say, "Hey, John, you're having a negotiation with Susie on where to go for where to go for lunch today. How would you handle Susie in that negotiation in order to convince her to go to the place you want to go to?" And of course, to have that dialogue back and forth. And it was incredible at being able to say, well, Susie is a high C personality, therefore this is what you need to, it was kind of great to have that exercise within Excel, but also the AI bots that help us, I guess, every day now.
Yeah, no, I think that's amazing. That's the direction I think it's going to go. But
Yeah.
I think when it comes right down to it, we're still, as realtors, we still deal with people,
Yeah.
and that's where we have to. I think whether you use DISC or whether you use something else, I think the idea is to improve your skills in communicating with people.
Mhm.
And when we communicate better with people, we're gonna be able to help them. And when we help them, we're going to be able to collect a paycheck.
Yeah.
And
Well, this is a fascinating topic. I always really enjoyed it, especially when it comes to negotiating and, of course, dealing with situations. And I hope everyone, does take it upon themselves to take the additional courses, get a profile done. Join us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Just type in Excel, XSEL, in order to join those groups. The app, the Excel.app, which is really not an app. I mean, it's a website, but it's XSEL.app is how you get to it. We'll give you a little more information about the learning management system and some of the things Excel is doing to really improve the realtor community with regards to training. Our next session is actually all about AI. And it's prompting for the real estate professionals. We're going to be sitting down with Ron O'Neill, who is a fantastic coach and leader in the industry when it comes to AI. And that's going to be June the 3rd at 10 a.m. That will be another 30-minute webinar. I'm going to ask them to go a little longer because that one is just fascinating. But anyway, I know Don and I can talk for the next hour or two about DISC, but we're going to wrap things up here. So that's the Excel app. There's also, if you look in the chat window, the excelapp.training.com as well. You can also contact Excel through support@excel.app as well. And of course, register for the next webinar, which is also being posted in the webinar chat. Don, any final words of encouragement for everybody today?
final words of encouragement would be to make sure you stop in to see or check in that next seminar with Ron O'Neill. I've talked to Ron on the phone. I love to talk to him. We geek out together, and it's not hard to all of a sudden look at your clock and you've been talking for an hour. So
Yeah.
for sure he's great. You'll enjoy it, and he's on top of what's happening out there. So
And of course,
you
Don,
won't miss it.
if anybody wants to get a hold of you, is there anything that any sort of site, or just Google you, or
They can just Google me. They can
Yeah.
go to dongertz.com, or they can, contact me through the Excel site as well. So we're
Great.
happy to help.
And I know this was custom live and streamed over the different platforms, and there'll be a meet available as well. So the slides will be, you'll be able to go through that video as well. So thank you so much, Don, and have a great rest of your week.
Yeah, good. I think they were going to make a cheat sheet available as well. So
Oh, perfect. Okay, maybe we
Yeah.
can get that sent out to everybody who registered for sure. Anyway, that's great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks a
Don.
bunch. Thanks for
Take care.
coming.